G'day ladies and gentlemen, ScottyD here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargame Network, and welcome back for another installment in our From Sprue to Tabletop series. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ATWN for another installment in our From Sprue to Tabletop series, where we look at all things hobbying, mainly focused on Warhammer 40,000 miniatures, but these skills that we are sharing here on this series can be applied to any miniature wargaming variety, whether it's your painting, whether it's assembly, whether it is basing, coming up with some awesome stuff. And we've got some great things coming up in the future for you guys as well in this series. But before we jump into today's video, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting us here on YouTube, whether you've been watching our content, liking our videos, commenting, or even subscribing. Really do appreciate all the support as we continue to edge towards the 1,000 subscriber mark to reach full YouTube partnership and unlock ad monetization here on the channel as well, which you guys have been instrumental being able to get us so far towards this goal already this year, and I'm excited to be able to hit it hopefully by the end of the year, but we'll see how we go. So for today's video, what we're actually going to be looking at in our From Sprue to Tabletop series, we're actually going to be looking at conversions, and specifically I'm going to be looking at conversions for my Necron Army. Now, to start off with, there's a lot of different conversions that you can go out and do, whether it's putting different parts from different kits together, commonly referred to as kit bashing. There's also using materials such as plastic card, green stuff, or other sculpting materials out there, you know, mill apart, other various different varieties of sculpting to create entirely custom elements or even custom miniatures entirely as well for your forces. Now, all of these methods that I've mentioned are completely valid when it comes to converting up your own unique looking models, but some are definitely easier than others when you are starting out in the hobby. So for today, we're actually going to be looking at the easiest version that you can do for conversions, which is still considered conversions, but it is kit bashing basically. And we're going to be doing some of that with my Necrons and converting up some really unique stuff for my Necrons, which I'm really looking forward to doing. Now, as you might be newer to the hobby, this is likely going to be the easiest way that you actually achieve some great unique looking custom miniatures for your armies going forward, so that you can add some character, some of your own personality to your forces rather than just using stock standard kits. Now, the first step that you're going to want to do when you are doing any conversions or kit bashing is that you want to do some research to see if anyone has done similar conversions to what you are wanting to do, or in the style of what you're wanting to do. Now, this might give you some ideas into how others have achieved or created what they are wanting to create in this kind of idea space, and also give you some guidance on what you might want to create for your own versions with what you've got in mind. Now, for the conversion that I'm going to be creating in this video, I did some research to see if anyone had actually converted up a Lokhurst Lord from a Scorpic Destroyer's body, and take some guidance from some of those who have done so before. And on screen right now, we've got some of the examples that I've found just through browsing on Google and just seeing what was out there. Some great options, some great guidance I was able to take away from some of these compared to some others as well. Now, after having done this research to see what others have done, you could end up finding that there is a whole heap of stuff you could find out there, or there could actually be none at all. And so some inspiration and some examples are definitely better than others. So the next step you actually want to do is you then want to list out the miniature parts that you're wanting to use from the various kits, or what kits you want to grab to be able to create this unique unit and put it all together, and roughly come up with some rough designs or some rough lists of what pieces you're actually wanting to put together for use for these miniatures. Now, when you do this, if you want to do some proper sketching, grab out some blank sketch paper or a sketchbook to draw some rough designs in there, or even just outline the pieces that you're wanting to use to create these custom miniatures. And it's really great to kind of solidify those thoughts and put some designs on paper like I've got on screen. So for example, here are some of the sketches that I've actually done when it comes to converting up some of the miniatures that I want to do for my Necrons is I'm wanting to convert up Lokhurst destroyers out of Scorpic destroyers over time as I get them to add to my army, because I really want to keep that kind of three-legged aesthetic when it comes to my Necrons, and the older Lokhurst Lord and destroyer sculpts really don't grab me too much. Same with the newer heavy Lokhurst destroyer. It's a great sculpt and it looks awesome. It just doesn't really grab me for the aesthetic that I really want to go for with my Necrons, and so really I'm gonna lean more into the Scorpic aesthetic rather than the Lokhurst aesthetic. Now, once you have gotten the pieces that you want to use listed, and maybe you've got some ideas sketched out that you want to do, the next step is to actually gather all of those pieces together, or those kits as well that you're going to grab those pieces from that you're going to want to use. So for the Lokhurst Lord, what I've actually done is I've grabbed a couple of sprues of Scorpic destroyers, but I'm also going to be making some Lokhurst destroyers and Lokhurst heavy destroyers from. I've got an Indominus Overlord sprue because they're relatively easy and cheap to come by, as well as some of the pieces left over from my Lichguard kits, particularly the War Scythe, maybe some back pieces from the Triac Praetorians that I might use as well. And for the Lokhurst destroyers themselves, I've got a bunch of Gorse weapons from my leftover Necron Warrior parts, and a bunch of spare 60mm bases, which one is specifically for the Lokhurst Lord, which is the grey one, or the black ones will be for the Lokhurst destroyers and the heavy destroyers. Now, when I sat down, I was being a bit ambitious, trying to convert up a Lokhurst Lord, 3 Lokhurst destroyers, and 2 Lokhurst heavy destroyers in about 2 hours of recording for this video. However, time decided that only the Lokhurst Lord would get done in this space. So before we jump in to actually doing any of the hobbying work for this, we're going to grab a whole bunch of tools together that we're actually going to need for the conversion process. Now, we're going to have these on screen for you guys as well. So starting off, we've got both plastic and super glue. Now, we are going to use both in doing this conversion. Plastic glue being the Contactor Professional by Revel. It's a really great plastic glue. Highly recommended if you're not already using it. Great to get into small spaces with the applicator, as well as creating a really strong bond between plastic pieces. The super glue we will also use for some pinning that we do later on this video, as I share a bit more about that process. Then we've got paper towel. So basically this is just to wipe off any excess glue from our applicator for our plastic glue, or from our super glue as well as cleaning off tools and such as well that we need to do. We've then got a hobby knife and clippers. Now, hobby knife is going to be one of our biggest tools that we're using in the conversion process outside of the clippers. Clippers, obviously, you're clipping pieces off the sprue with them, but also they help you get through large chunks. If you don't have smaller hobby saw blades that you can put into your hobby knife to use to cut through, so the hobby clippers can really come into handy. We've got spare hobby knife blades as well, so if you do have a dull blade, you probably want to swap it out for a fresh blade as well, but just be careful because they are sharp. Then we have also got some blue tack. Now, blue tack is really, really good when it comes to actually testing out where you want to pose the miniature, what pieces you want to go where, without needing to glue it together or anything. So really good to have some blue tack on hand, or some modeling putty or something like that, something that's malleable, like blue tack, for example. Then we have also got drill bits and pin vices. So I've got a whole heap of different size drill bits and 2 different pin vices, one that can take smaller bits, the other one takes larger drill bits. So this is what we're going to use for when we're doing some pinning, but also these come in handy with cleaning up some different elements on the conversion that we're doing as well. Then we've got paper clips and metal clippers. Now, paper clips are typically what you're going to want to grab when you're wanting to create the pins when you are using for pinning, and having a set of dedicated metal clippers to go along with that means that you're not going to ruin your dedicated hobby clippers by clipping up metal paper clips to use for pins. So it's really good to have a separate set of metal clippers that you can use there. And then we've got some hobby files. We're only going to be using a round file and a flat file in this one because that's all we need, and they really do come in handy as well. Now, to start off with, we're going to head into clipping off all of the pieces from the Scorpic Destroyer sprue and the Overlord of each miniature for a single one of each, so that we've got all the parts off the sprues ready to go for selecting the pieces that we want to use in the conversion that we're going to be creating for this Lokhurst Lord. Now, once we have clipped off all of the pieces for each miniature, we're actually going to select the pieces that we want to be using, which for the Scorpec Destroyer is actually just going to be the lower half of the body, which we then go and we then clean off the mold lines of. Then the next step in this process is actually doing the same thing with the Overlord to create the main torso part and the main arms for the Lokhurst Lord. Now, for the torso, I've decided to leave it as is from like the middle of the spine up, as well as we're going to be grabbing the tabard from the middle of the legs. So it is going to require a lot of clipping in that process to be able to grab it. Now, I've decided that for the left arm, I'm actually going to use a Triac Praetorian Void Blade Gauntlet to represent the Resurrection Orb with a spare Necron hand from the Lich Guard kit, utilizing parts of the arm from the Overlord to still have that kind of angled look about it. Then for the right arm, I've chosen to actually cut the Overlord's arm off at the elbow and get rid of the elbow joint. And then at that elbow joint, we're also going to be cutting at the above the elbow joint on a Lich Guard arm to actually fit that elbow joint into the arm of where the Overlord is, because part of the arm of the Overlord actually has a little bit of the torso on it, so we need to maintain that for the integrity of the Lokhurst Lord's torso. Now, each of these pieces will take a little bit of work to achieve, but through the careful use of the tools that we have at our disposal, we're able to put each part of this model together over time. We're going to be using the clippers to cut off the larger pieces that we're not going to be needing to allow us to have less work to do with our hobby knife and our files to get the pieces that we want, and primarily this is around the tabard of the Lokhurst Lord. Now, I also make use of the pin vices and the files to be able to clear out parts of the Void Blade's hand to allow for it to be turned into that gauntlet look, with the arm pieces from the Overlord kit being put underneath and such as well. Now, as we work through the converting process for the pieces that we need, I'll be using Blue Tack to test out the base positioning, as well as the different poses that he can take to ensure that the miniature is going to have the look that I want overall, and that I'm actually aiming for as well. Now, once we are happy with the positioning that we have got for all the different pieces, then we start off gluing the miniature together. And we start off by gluing the legs in a position on the base. Then after that, I go ahead and I attach the right forearm to the right upper arm of the torso, ensuring that that has got a solid connection as well. And then once the plastic glue is dried, I actually go back in with some super glue to solidify that connection even further afterwards as well. Next up, I then use the pin vise to do some pinning to strengthen the connection between the spines of the Scorpec legs and the torso of the Overlord. So to start off with how we do this, we actually grab the point of the hobby knife to create a small pilot hole in the center of each part of the spine that we're going to be connecting, where we're wanting to create that pin joint. Then we grab our pin vise with the right width drill bit and we sit it in the pilot hole, and then we drill a hole on each piece for the pin to slot into. Now, when you are drilling each of these holes, you want to make sure they're to a decent depth, because that's how deep the pin is actually going to be sitting into their respective pieces. So the deeper it is, the stronger the connection between each part is going to be. Now, the depth of the hole you're going to be able to drill is dependent upon the depth of plastic you have to be able to drill into. Being the spines of each miniature, there is a decent amount of wiggle room there in terms of how far you can actually drill in, which is really nice. So we're able to put a decent length pin in here. Now, after you've done so, you want to cut a pin from the paper clip to the right length. Now, it's best to start with a larger pin than trying to cut one to a perfect size, because then you could end up just cutting the pin short. So if you start off by cutting the pin at a longer length, and then you can put the two pieces on that pin, not gluing them, put them on there, see how much more you need to get rid of, and then you can pare it down from there, small chunks at a time, so you can ensure that it's going to be a right fit. Then once you've got the pin to the right size, using super glue, you want to glue the pin into one side and let it dry before then applying glue onto the other exposed side of the pin and gluing the other piece in place. Now, you're going to want to use super glue for this because you're gluing metal to plastic, and so you're also going to want to use super glue for the joint rather than using plastic glue as well. So then it's a full heavy bond between the pin and the two pieces with the super glue there as well. Now, this process is how I've actually chosen to attach the legs and the torso together to actually create a stronger bond between them rather than just using plastic glue alone and having it being a little bit of a weaker bond there. Now, after the torso has been attached, I then glue the war scythe onto the right arm of the miniature. Now, this takes a little bit of time to set as well, much like the elbows. When I did this, I was in a little bit of a rush as well, which I definitely won't be doing next time, and I'm going to be doing it in a different order where I'm going to do the war scythe onto the wrist first before doing the forearm into the upper arm part of the miniature gluing as well, so then I can get the war scythe into the right spot that I want rather than the position that I have it in right now. But with the war scythe now in place, I then glue all the components for the resurrection arm in place into that left arm joint, so the gauntlet's sitting in there. It is all put together and ready to go. And basically that is how I go about converting up this Lokhurst Lord, and he looks really good. I'm overall with the conversion, I'm quite happy with it. However, if there's anything in particular that I would change for next time, it's actually the placement of the war scythe. I think it could be in a bit of a better position because it's going to make painting a little difficult in some areas, but I'm really keen to actually field this model now and be able to create the other Lokhurst destroyers that have been going along with this one. Now, I do also plan to do other conversions for the Lokhurst destroyers and heavy destroyers as well, which I might do in a future video, but I'm not sure. If you guys do want to see that, let me know down in the comment section below, and we can definitely show you how I go about doing that, as well as I'm really excited to do those conversions as well. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Really straightforward, nice and simple in terms of creating a conversion and creating a unique miniature from a whole bunch of different kits, and just taking the time and really thinking out how to do it effectively. And it does take time to do these conversions as well, so be prepared to spend that time and effort, spend a few hours on making a really great, unique looking miniature. And the first few times that you do it, they mightn't come out as great, but again, much like painting, it is a skill that you learn over time, and this is a skill I haven't done in a long time, so I'm excited to actually do that for my Necrons, to create some unique looking Lokhurst origin models for my Necron army. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really do appreciate you guys hanging out with us for our From Sprue to Tabletop series. Now, I hope that this video was a great insight in terms of how to go about doing some simple conversions using kit bashing as a primary source. There's a lot of different ways you can go about doing conversions out there, and I'm sure that over time we'll get into doing some of those. But again, as I've said, this is a muscle I haven't really flexed all that much in the past like 5 to 10 years. So I'm really excited to be able to flex that a bit more with my Necrons and be able to get my skills up in that as well. If you did have any feedback on this video, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. If you did enjoy it, feel free to hit it with a like. And if you want to catch more content from us here at the ATWN, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you'll be notified as to when we are releasing more content here on the network. And if you do want to catch us live when we are doing hobbying sessions or tournament previews and such that aren't here on YouTube, feel free to head over to Twitch, where you can follow us at the Australis TWN channel there, where we do tournament previews and hobbying sessions and a whole bunch of other stuff coming up, which is going to be absolutely phenomenal there. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to take a second to thank everyone who does support us financially here at the ATWN, whether you are a Twitch subscriber, whether you're a Ko-Fi member, or whether you're a YouTube member. Really do appreciate your guys' financial support. You're allowing us to do so much more than what we would normally be able to do with our tournament coverage, being able to buy and upgrade our gear, as well as do gear maintenance and really cover our monthly costs of the business as well, which is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you to everyone who is up on screen who does financially support us. And if you do want to support us here on YouTube, you can jump in as being a first company veteran or a veteran sergeant. The veterans are $4.99 Australian, or the veteran sergeants are $9.99 Australian. So if you're in different parts of the world, it is going to be in your local currency, so bear that in mind. If you're in the US, it's going to be a lot less than what it is listed for Australian dollars, which is awesome for you guys. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you hanging out for today's video, and I'll catch you in the next one.